It was Tuesday morning when David Rodriguez stepped out of his black luxury car at the front gate of Atlantic Manufacturing. As the CEO of one of the country's biggest industrial companies, David was used to getting respect wherever he went. Today felt different, though. He had a knot in his stomach that wouldn't go away. The company's newest project was falling apart. For 6 long months, their best engineers had been trying to fix a revolutionary engine design that was supposed to change everything. This wasn't just any engine. It was meant to be cleaner, more powerful, and cheaper to make than anything else on the market. But instead of making history, it was making headaches. David walked through the main factory floor, his expensive leather shoes clicking against the concrete. Workers stopped what they were doing to nod respectfully as he passed. Some whispered to each other behind his back. Everyone knew about the engine problem. The company was bleeding money every day the project stayed broken. "Good morning, sir," said Tom Bradley, the head of engineering, rushing up to meet David. Tom looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes told the story of too many sleepless nights. "I wish I had better news, but we're still stuck on the same issues." David's jaw tightened. "Tom, we've spent $12 million on this project. My investors are asking questions I can't answer. How much longer do you need?" Tom shifted uncomfortably. "The truth is, sir, we might need to start over completely. The engine design has problems we didn't see before. The fuel system keeps failing, and every time we fix one thing, 2 more problems show up." They walked toward the restricted engineering section, where the prototype engine sat like an expensive piece of sculpture. David could see his reflection in its polished metal surface. Right now, it looked more like a monument to failure than the future of clean energy. "What exactly is wrong with it?" David asked, staring at the silent machine. "Well, the main issue seems to be with the compression ratios," Tom explained, pointing to different parts of the engine. "But we've also got problems with the cooling system, the valve timing, and the fuel injection. Honestly, sir, it's like the whole thing was designed wrong from the start." David felt his anger rising. This was supposed to be his legacy project, the engine that would put Atlantic Manufacturing ahead of every competitor. Instead, it was turning into the biggest embarrassment of his career. Just then, he heard the sound of water splashing on the floor behind him. He turned around to see a woman in her early 40s mopping the area near their conversation. She wore simple blue work clothes and had her hair tied back in a practical ponytail. David had never noticed her before, but then again, he rarely paid attention to the cleaning staff. The woman seemed to be working extra slowly, and David realized she was listening to their conversation. This annoyed him. Company secrets weren't meant for everyone's ears. "Excuse me," David said sharply. "This is a restricted area. You shouldn't be here right now." The woman looked up, startled. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm just finishing up the cleaning. I'll be done in a minute." Her voice was soft but clear. She had an accent that suggested she might have come from another country originally. As she moved to leave, she accidentally stepped backward into her mop bucket. Water splashed everywhere, including onto David's $1,000 Italian leather shoes. The expensive leather immediately started to stain. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," the woman exclaimed, quickly grabbing towels to clean up the mess. "I'm really sorry about your shoes, sir." David looked down at his ruined shoes and felt his temper explode. "Look what you've done. Do you have any idea how much these cost?" "I'm so sorry," the woman repeated, kneeling down to try to clean his shoes. "I can pay for cleaning or replacement or whatever you need." David was about to say something harsh when the woman continued talking. "I couldn't help but hear you talking about the engine problems. Maybe I shouldn't say anything, but it sounds like the compression ratio issue might be connected to the fuel injection timing." Tom laughed. "What would you know about engines?" The woman stood up slowly. "Well, from what I overheard, it sounds like you might need to adjust the compression ratio first, then recalibrate the fuel injection timing to match. Sometimes the cooling system problems happen because the engine is working too hard to compensate for the timing issues." David stared at her in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? You're a cleaning lady giving engineering advice to people with advanced degrees?" "I didn't mean to overstep," the woman said quietly. "I just thought maybe a fresh perspective might help." By now, several engineers had gathered around to see what was happening. Word spread quickly in the factory, and more people were starting to watch the scene unfold. David felt embarrassed and angry. Here he was, getting advice from someone who probably didn't even finish high school, while his million-dollar team of experts stood around looking helpless. "You know what?" David said, his voice getting louder. "I'm tired of everyone thinking they know better than the professionals. If you're so smart, why don't you prove it?" The woman looked confused. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "I'm making you an offer," David announced, making sure everyone could hear him. "1 week, I'll give you exactly 1 week to fix what my team of experts couldn't solve in 6 months. You think you know about engines? Here's your chance to prove it." The crowd of workers grew larger. People were pulling out their phones to record what was happening. David was too angry to care about being filmed. "If you can fix this engine in 1 week, I'll personally apologize and make sure everyone knows you were right. But when you fail, and you will fail, I want you to admit that you were wrong to speak up about things you don't understand. Deal?" The woman was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the engine, then at the crowd of people watching her, then finally at David. "What happens if I actually fix it?" "You won't," David said confidently. "But if by some miracle you do, I'll give you a job in our engineering department. And if I don't fix it, then you find a new job somewhere else. I don't want employees who think they know better than their bosses." The woman took a deep breath. She seemed to be thinking very carefully about something. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I accept your challenge." The crowd started murmuring excitedly. Some people looked shocked, others seemed amused. Tom Bradley shook his head like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "What's your name?" David asked. "Lisa," the woman replied simply. "Lisa Park." "Well, Lisa Park, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. But don't worry, it'll only last a week." David turned to Tom. "Give her whatever access she needs, tools, manuals, whatever. I want everyone to see exactly what happens when people think they can do jobs they're not qualified for." As David walked away, he felt satisfied. He had just taught an important lesson about staying in your lane and respecting expertise. His engineers would see what happened when amateurs tried to do professional work, and maybe they'd feel more motivated to solve the problem themselves. Behind him, Lisa quietly gathered her cleaning supplies and looked one more time at the engine. That would determine her future. She had just accepted an impossible challenge, and everyone expected her to fail. But Lisa Park had secrets that nobody in that factory could imagine. That evening, Lisa Park sat in her small apartment staring at a cup of cold coffee. The day's events kept replaying in her mind like a movie she couldn't turn off. She had just accepted the most dangerous challenge of her life, and everyone expected her to fail spectacularly. Her phone buzzed with text messages from coworkers who had witnessed the confrontation. Most of them were supportive, but she could tell they thought she had lost her mind. "Girl, what were you thinking?" wrote Jenny, from the cafeteria staff. "That man is going to fire you for sure." Lisa walked to her bedroom closet and pushed aside her work uniforms. Hidden behind them was a small cardboard box that she hadn't opened in 2 years. Inside were her diplomas, awards, and certificates from her previous life. The life she had tried so hard to forget. The first document she pulled out was her PhD, diploma from Stanford University in mechanical engineering. Below that were letters of recommendation from professors who had called her brilliant and revolutionary. There were photos from engineering conferences where she had presented groundbreaking research to audiences of hundreds. But the most painful item in the box was a newspaper clipping with the headline, "Senior Engineer Blamed for Fatal Design. Flaw." The article described how Dr. Lisa Park, former lead engineer at Titan Corporation, had been held responsible for an engine failure that caused a factory accident. 3 workers had been injured, and the company faced millions in lawsuits. What the newspaper didn't mention was that Lisa had actually discovered the design flaw weeks before the accident. She had warned her supervisors repeatedly, but they ignored her concerns because fixing the problem would have delayed their product launch. When the accident happened, they needed someone to blame, and Lisa, was the perfect scapegoat. She lost everything overnight: her reputation, her career, her confidence. No engineering company would hire her after the scandal. Her savings disappeared, paying for lawyers who couldn't clear her name. Eventually, she had to take whatever work she could find just to survive. Lisa closed the box and made a decision that would change everything. She was tired of hiding, tired of pretending to be someone she wasn't. If David Rodriguez wanted to see what she could do, she would show him exactly who Lisa Park really was. At midnight, Lisa used her cleaning access card to enter the factory. The building was empty except for a few security guards who knew her well. She had been working there for almost 2 years, always quiet, always invisible. Tonight would be different. The engineering bay was dark and silent. Lisa turned on the lights and approached the prototype engine that had stumped David's team for 6 months. She put on safety glasses and examined it carefully, running her hands along its surface like a doctor checking a patient. What she saw made her shake her head in disbelief. The problems were so obvious to someone with her background. David's engineers weren't incompetent, but they were thinking inside a box. They were trying to force a flawed design to work instead of understanding why it was flawed in the first place. Lisa opened her notebook and started sketching. The compression ratio was indeed wrong, but that was just the beginning. The cooling system was poorly designed, placing heat exchangers in locations where they couldn't work efficiently. The valve timing was off by several degrees, causing the engine to work against itself. Even the materials chosen for key components were inappropriate for the stress levels they would face. She worked through the night, creating detailed diagrams and calculations. By dawn, she had identified 17 major problems and designed solutions for each one. But identifying problems was easy compared to fixing them. Over the next 3 days, Lisa developed a routine. During her regular cleaning shifts, she would observe the engineers working on the engine. She listened to their conversations and watched their attempts to solve various problems. At night, she would return to implement her own solutions. Lisa had to be extremely careful. She couldn't let anyone discover what she was doing until she was ready. She used her access to the machine shop to fabricate new parts, working slowly and quietly to avoid detection. Her movements were precise and confident, muscle memory from years of hands-on engineering work coming back to her. The hardest part was creating new cooling system components. Lisa had to completely redesign the heat exchanger layout, moving components to positions where airflow would be optimal. She worked with materials from the factory's inventory, carefully calculating heat transfer rates and stress tolerances. The second night, something amazing happened. As Lisa installed her modified fuel injection system, she heard the engine make a sound it had never made before. It was subtle, but her trained ear caught it immediately. The engine was trying to run properly for the first time in months. By the third night, Lisa was making final adjustments to the valve timing system. This was the most delicate work, requiring precision measurements down to fractions of degrees. One small mistake could destroy the entire engine, and she would have no way to explain what happened. As she worked, Lisa thought about the 3 workers who had been injured because of the engine she had tried to fix at Titan Corporation. She had failed to save them from corporate greed and negligence. But maybe, just maybe, she could save herself this time. The breakthrough came at 2 in the morning on the 4th day. Lisa had just finished installing her modified compression system when she decided to run a preliminary test. She connected the engine to the test computer and held her breath as she pressed the start button. The engine came to life with a smooth, powerful hum that filled the entire engineering bay. But this wasn't just any engine sound. This was the sound of perfect engineering, of all systems working in harmony, exactly as they were designed to do. Lisa stared at the computer readouts in amazement. The engine wasn't just running, it was running better than the original specifications had ever promised. Power output was 12% higher than expected. Fuel efficiency was 20% better than the target goals. Emissions were so low they were barely measurable. She ran test after test, checking every system multiple times. Everything worked perfectly. The cooling system maintained optimal temperatures even under maximum load. The fuel injection delivered precisely the right amount at exactly the right time. The valve timing was so perfect that the engine sounded like music. For the first time in 2 years, Lisa Park smiled with genuine pride. She had taken a broken, impossible machine and turned it into something beautiful. More importantly, she had proven to herself that she was still the engineer she used to be, but her victory was short-lived. As she was shutting down the engine, she heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Someone was coming and she wasn't supposed to be there. Lisa quickly turned off the lights and hid behind a large tool cabinet, her heart pounding as the footsteps got closer. The door opened and a flashlight beam swept across the room. It was Rodriguez doing an unexpected late-night inspection. He walked directly to the engine and stood there for a long moment, as if he could sense that something had changed. Lisa held her breath, pressed against the cold metal cabinet, waiting for him to leave. If he discovered her now, everything would be ruined. She would be fired for unauthorized access and no one would ever know what she had accomplished. After what felt like hours, Rodriguez finally left. Lisa waited another 30 minutes before carefully making her way out of the building. Tomorrow would be the day of reckoning. In just a few hours, David Rodriguez would discover that the impossible had happened. The cleaning lady had fixed the unfixable engine. David Rodriguez walked into Atlantic Manufacturing that Friday morning, expecting to enjoy the sweetest moment of his week. Today was the day he would prove his point about people knowing their place. The cleaning lady who dared to challenge his engineering team would finally admit defeat, and everyone would learn a valuable lesson about respecting expertise. He had already prepared his speech. Something about how important it was for employees to focus on their own jobs and leave the technical work to qualified professionals. He might even be generous and let Lisa keep her cleaning position, as long as she promised never to speak out, of turn again. But as David approached the engineering bay, he heard something that stopped him in his tracks. It was a sound he hadn't heard in months, the deep, steady hum of an engine running smoothly and powerfully. "That's impossible," he muttered to himself, quickening his pace. David burst through the doors of the engineering bay and found Lisa standing next to the prototype engine, which was running perfectly on the test stand. She wore the same simple work clothes as always, but something about her posture was different. She stood straighter, more confident, like a completely different person. "Good morning, Mr. Rodriguez," Lisa said calmly, not taking her eyes off the engine readouts. "I think you'll want to see this." Tom Bradley and the other engineers came running when they heard the engine sound. They stopped at the doorway, staring in complete shock at the machine that had defeated them for half a year. "How is this possible?" Tom whispered. "We tried everything." Lisa began explaining what she had done, and David felt his world start to shift. She didn't talk like a cleaning lady anymore. Her words were precise and technical, using engineering terms that most of his own staff struggled with. She moved around the engine, pointing out modifications with the confidence of someone who had built hundreds of similar machines. The main problem was that everyone was trying to fix symptoms instead of causes, Lisa explained. "You kept adjusting the fuel system because it was failing, but the real issue was that the compression ratio was forcing the engine to work too hard. That created excessive heat, which overwhelmed your cooling system, which caused more fuel system problems." She pointed to different parts of the engine as she spoke. "Once I corrected the compression ratio, I could redesign the cooling system, layout for optimal airflow. Then the fuel injection timing could be properly calibrated, and the valve timing could be set for maximum efficiency." David watched his senior engineers taking notes as Lisa spoke. These were men with decades of experience and advanced degrees, and they were learning from someone they thought was just a janitor. "But how did you know how to do all this?" asked Jennifer Walsh, one of the lead mechanical engineers. "Where did you learn about engine design?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. She walked over to a computer terminal and pulled up the engine's performance data. The numbers on the screen were incredible. Power output was 15% higher than their target specifications. Fuel efficiency was 22% better than expected. Emissions were so low they exceeded the strictest environmental standards by a huge margin. These numbers, Lisa said softly, are better than anything your team promised the investors. David felt a chill run down his spine. I asked you a question. How do you know how to do this? Lisa turned to face him directly. For the first time, since he had known her, she looked him straight in the eye without any trace of the submissive deference he was used to seeing from cleaning staff. My name is Dr. Lisa Park, she said clearly. I have a PhD in mechanical engineering from Stanford University. I spent 12 years as a senior engineer at Titan Corporation, where I led the development team for their award-winning EcoMax engine series. The engineering bay fell completely silent. David felt like he had been punched in the stomach. That's impossible, Tom said. If you're really Dr. Lisa Park, then you're the engineer who caused that massive accident at Titan. You're the one who designed the faulty engine that injured those workers. Lisa's expression hardened. That's exactly what Titan Corporation wanted everyone to believe. The truth is, I discovered the design flaw 3 weeks before that accident happened. I wrote detailed reports warning my supervisors about the problem. I begged them to delay the product launch until we could fix it. She walked over to her small backpack and pulled out a folder of documents. I have copies of every email I sent, every report I filed, every meeting where I tried to get them to listen. But fixing the problem would have cost millions and delayed their launch by 6 months, so they ignored my warnings and launched anyway. David's mind was racing. He remembered the Titan accident. It had been front-page news in all the industry publications. 3 workers injured when an engine exploded during routine maintenance. Titan Corporation had faced enormous lawsuits and regulatory investigations. When the accident happened, Lisa continued, Titan needed someone to blame. They destroyed my reports, deleted my emails from their servers, and told everyone that I had approved the faulty design. My own team members were too scared for their jobs to defend me. She handed the folder to Jennifer Walsh. These are the original documents I kept copies of. You can verify everything I'm telling you. Jennifer flipped through the papers, her eyes growing wider with each page. These reports clearly identify the exact failure that caused the accident, and they're dated weeks before it happened. So why didn't you fight back? David asked. Why didn't you prove your innocence? Lisa laughed bitterly. With what money? Titan Corporation had teams of lawyers and unlimited resources. I was just one person trying to fight a billion-dollar company that was determined to destroy my reputation, to protect itself. David felt sick to his stomach. He was starting to understand the full scope of what had happened. I lost everything, Lisa said. My job, my reputation, my savings. No engineering company would hire me after the scandal. I couldn't even get interviews. Eventually, I had to take whatever work I could find just to pay rent and buy food. Tom Bradley was staring at the performance data on the computer screen. Dr. Park, these engine modifications you made are absolutely brilliant. This isn't just fixing our problems, this is revolutionizing the entire design. So, for the past 2 years, David said slowly, I've had one of the country's top mechanical engineers working as a janitor in my factory. Not just any janitor, Lisa replied. A janitor you publicly humiliated and challenged to do something impossible, while assuming I was too stupid to understand basic engineering concepts. The weight of David's mistake was crushing him. He had spent months watching his company bleed. Money while the solution walked past him every day with a mop and bucket. He had dismissed genuine expertise because it came from someone he considered beneath his notice. But the worst part was realizing how his arrogance had nearly cost him everything. If Lisa had decided to quit instead of accepting his challenge, she could have taken her solution to any of his competitors. They would have paid millions for the innovations she had just given him for free. Dr. Park, David said carefully, I owe you an apology that I'm not sure I'm capable of giving. You owe me more than an apology, Lisa replied. You owe me the chance to clear my name and get my life back. Word traveled fast through Atlantic Manufacturing. By lunchtime, everyone knew that the cleaning lady had fixed the impossible engine and revealed herself to be a world-class engineer. Workers gathered in small groups, whispering about what they had witnessed. Some pulled out their phones to show videos they had recorded of the morning's dramatic confrontation. David Rodriguez sat in his office trying to process what had just happened. His secretary had been fielding calls all morning from department heads wanting to know if the rumors were true. The company's stock price had already started climbing as news of the breakthrough spread to investors. But David wasn't celebrating. He was dealing with the most humbling experience of his professional life. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Robert Chen, the chairman of Atlantic Manufacturing's board of directors, walked in with a grim expression. Robert was David's biggest supporter and the man who had hired him as CEO 3 years earlier. Today he looked deeply disappointed. "David, we need to talk," Robert said, closing the door behind him. "I've been getting calls from board members all morning. They're asking some very difficult questions about your leadership." David felt his stomach drop. "Robert, I know how this looks, but—" "Do you?" Robert interrupted. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you had one of the most brilliant engineers in the country working as a janitor for 2 years, and you never noticed. Worse than that, you publicly humiliated her and nearly drove her away." "I had no way of knowing who she was," David protested. "She never told anyone about her background." "That's not the point," Robert said, sitting down across from David's desk. "The point is that a good leader recognizes talent wherever it comes from. You saw someone offering a solution to our biggest problem, and instead of listening, you mocked them because of their job title." David knew Robert was right, but it still stung to hear it said so directly. "The board is asking if you're the right person to lead this company," Robert continued. "We've got investors who want to know how many other talented people we're overlooking. We've got competitors who are probably laughing at us right now. And we've got an employee who single-handedly solved a problem that was costing us millions." Meanwhile, down in the engineering bay, Lisa was facing her own challenges. Tom Bradley and the other engineers were treating her with a mixture of respect and embarrassment. They knew they had been shown up by someone they had considered beneath their notice. "Dr. Park," Tom said awkwardly, "I want to apologize for how we treated you. If you had known what?" Lisa interrupted. "That I had a PhD? That I used to work for a major corporation? Would that have made my ideas worth listening to?" Tom looked uncomfortable. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is," Lisa said firmly. "And that's exactly the problem. Good ideas don't become better just because they come from someone with impressive credentials. Bad ideas don't become good just because they're suggested by someone with a fancy title." Jennifer Walsh nodded. "You're absolutely right. We should have listened to your suggestions regardless of your job title. I'm sorry we didn't." But Lisa's biggest challenge wasn't dealing with apologetic engineers. It was deciding what she wanted to do next. By afternoon, her phone was ringing constantly. News of her achievement had leaked to industry publications and competitor companies. Engineering firms that wouldn't return her calls 2 years ago were now offering her senior positions with 6-figure salaries. "Dr. Park, this is Amanda from TechFlow Industries," said one caller. "We'd like to offer you a position as our director of advanced engineering, with a starting salary of $200,000. Another company offered even more. "Dr. Park, we're prepared to offer you a $250,000 signing bonus if you'll consider joining our team." Lisa listened to the offers politely, but her mind was focused on something else entirely. She didn't just want a job. She wanted justice. That evening, David finally worked up the courage to approach Lisa directly. He found her in the engineering bay, still running tests on the engine she had perfected. "Dr. Park," he said quietly, "could we talk privately?" Lisa looked up from her work. "What did you want to discuss, Mr. Rodriguez?" "I want to offer you a position in our engineering department," David said. "Senior engineer, competitive salary, full benefits. You'd be working directly with our best people on our most important projects." Lisa turned off the engine and faced him directly. "That's very generous, but I'm not interested." David was surprised. "Not interested? But you've proven you belong here. You could help us develop revolutionary products that change the entire industry." "Under whose leadership?" Lisa asked. "Yours? The same leadership that ignored my expertise for 2 years? The same leadership that publicly humiliated me for offering to help?" David felt his face flush with embarrassment. "I know I made mistakes, but I'm trying to make things right." "No," Lisa said firmly. You're trying to minimize the damage to your reputation. There's a difference. She walked over to the computer terminal and pulled up her engine performance data. This breakthrough isn't just going to save your company millions of dollars. It's going to make you famous as the CEO who delivered the most efficient engine in automotive history. David realized she was right. The business media would credit him with the achievement, not her. But here's what I want, Lisa continued. I don't want to work under you. I want to work beside you. I want my own engineering division with complete autonomy. I want the authority to hire my own team and set my own priorities. And I want a public acknowledgement of what really happened at Titan Corporation. David stared at her. You want me to make you an equal partner in running this company? I want you to give me the respect and authority that my abilities deserve, Lisa replied. I've spent 2 years being invisible. I'm done with that. The board will never approve that kind of arrangement, David said. Then I'll take one of the other offers I've received today, Lisa said calmly. TechFlow Industries has offered me a director position with complete project autonomy. Apex Engineering wants to build an entire new division around my innovations, and Peterson Motors is willing to give me equity in their company. David felt panic rising in his chest. You can't leave. This engine technology belongs to Atlantic Manufacturing. Actually, it doesn't, Lisa said with a slight smile. I developed these innovations on my own time, using my own knowledge and expertise. The only reason I'm even discussing this with you is because I used your materials and equipment to build the prototype. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to him. You have until Monday morning to decide, Mr. Rodriguez. Either you treat me as the expert I've proven myself to be, or I take my expertise somewhere that will appreciate it properly. As Lisa left the building, David realized he was facing the biggest decision of his career. He could swallow his pride and give Lisa what she wanted, or he could lose the most valuable employee his company had ever had. David Rodriguez didn't sleep at all over the weekend. He spent Saturday and Sunday pacing around his house, trying to figure out how to handle the biggest crisis of his career. His wife finally stopped asking what was wrong when she saw him staring at his phone at 3 a.m, reading news articles about Lisa's breakthrough. The story had already hit the engineering blogs and industry websites. Cleaning lady solves 6-month engineering problem in 1 week, read one headline. Another said, hidden genius emerges at Atlantic Manufacturing. The comment sections were brutal for David, with people calling him everything from arrogant to completely incompetent. Monday morning came faster than David wanted. He arrived at the office early, hoping to get his thoughts together before facing Lisa. But when he walked into the lobby, he found Robert Chen waiting for him with 3 other board members. David, we need to talk immediately, Robert said. His tone was serious, almost cold. They went to the conference room where Robert laid out a folder of documents on the table. These are resignation letters from half our engineering team, he said. They're embarrassed about being outperformed by someone they ignored for 2 years. They think the whole industry is laughing at them. David felt his world starting to collapse. We can replace them. With what? Asked board member Patricia Williams. Every good engineer in the country knows what happened here. They're going to want to know why they should work for a company that doesn't recognize talent. More importantly, added board member Kevin Thompson, we've got 3 major competitors trying to poach Dr. Park. If she leaves and takes her innovations, with her we'll be right back where we started. Except now we'll also be the laughingstock of the industry. Robert leaned forward. David, I'm going to be direct with you. The board has lost confidence in your ability to handle this situation. We're prepared to remove you as CEO if you don't fix this mess today. David felt like he was drowning. What do you want me to do? Whatever Dr. Park wants, Robert said firmly. She's the most valuable asset this company has right now. If she walks out that door, she takes our future with her. Down in the engineering bay, Lisa was cleaning out her small work locker. She had already made her decision over the weekend. TechFlow Industries had offered her something David never could, a fresh start with people who would respect her from day one. Jennifer Walsh found her there, looking concerned. Dr. Park, You're not really leaving, are you? I am, Lisa said. Simply, I start at TechFlow next Monday. But what about the engine project? What about all the improvements you wanted to make? Lisa paused in her packing. Jennifer, I spent 2 years being treated like I was invisible. Even after proving what I can do, Mr. Rodriguez still wants to treat me like an employee who should be grateful for whatever scraps he throws my way. Not everyone here feels that way, Jennifer said quietly. Some of us have learned from this experience. I know, Lisa replied, and I'm sorry to leave people like you behind, but I can't work in a place where my value is determined by someone who fundamentally doesn't respect what I bring to the table. At that moment, David appeared in the doorway. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him stood Robert Chen and the other board members. Dr. Park, David said, his voice hoarse. Could we please talk? Lisa looked at the group of executives and realized this was bigger than just David's pride. All right, but make it quick. I have paperwork to finish with TechFlow this afternoon. They moved to the main conference room, where David stood at the head of the table like he was about to give the most important presentation of his life. Dr. Park, he began, I want to publicly apologize for my behavior last week. I was arrogant, dismissive, and completely wrong about your abilities and your value to this company. Lisa waited for him to continue, her expression neutral. More than that, David said, I want to offer you a position as Director of Advanced Engineering. You would have your own department, your own budget, and complete autonomy over your projects. You would report directly to the board, not to me. Robert Chen stepped forward. Dr. Park, the board has also authorized me to offer you a significant signing bonus and stock options that would make you a partial owner of this company. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. What about my reputation? What about clearing my name? From the Titan Corporation scandal? David nodded. We've already contacted our legal team and our public relations firm. We're prepared to help you fight for a public correction of the record. Atlantic Manufacturing will use all of our resources to make sure the truth about what happened at Titan becomes public knowledge. And you're willing to put all of this in writing? Lisa asked. Absolutely, Robert replied. We've already had our lawyers draft the contracts. Lisa walked to the window and looked out at the factory floor where she had spent 2 years being overlooked and underestimated. She thought about all the innovations she could develop with proper resources and support. She thought about the young engineers she could mentor and the changes she could make to how the industry treated talent. I have some conditions, she said finally. Name them, David replied immediately. First, I want to implement a company-wide innovation program where any employee, regardless of their job title, can submit ideas for technical improvements. No more dismissing suggestions based on someone's position. Done, said Robert. Second, I want diversity requirements for all engineering hiring. This company needs people from different backgrounds bringing different perspectives to our problems. Agreed, David said. Third, Lisa continued, I want to establish an engineering scholarship program for students who can't afford traditional education paths. Too many brilliant minds get overlooked because they don't have the right credentials or connections. Patricia Williams smiled. Dr. Park, these are exactly the kinds of initiatives this company needs. Lisa turned back to face them. And finally, I want Mr. Rodriguez to personally apologize to every member of the cleaning staff for implying that their intelligence and contributions don't matter. David's face reddened, but he nodded. I'll do it today. Then I accept your offer, Lisa said. The relief in the room was palpable. Robert Chen actually smiled for the first time all morning. 6 months later, Lisa stood in front of 500 engineers at the National Automotive Engineering Conference. She was delivering the keynote speech about innovation and recognizing talent in unexpected places. The most dangerous phrase in engineering, she said to the audience, is that's not how we've always done it. The second most dangerous phrase is, that person couldn't possibly understand this problem. In the audience, David Rodriguez applauded along with everyone else. He had learned to be a very different kind of leader over the past months. Under Lisa's direction, Atlantic Manufacturing had become known as one of the most innovative and inclusive companies in the industry. True leadership, Lisa continued, isn't about having all the answers. It's about being smart enough to recognize good answers when you hear them, regardless of where they come from. After her speech, reporters crowded around Lisa, asking about her remarkable journey from janitor to industry leader. Dr. Park, what advice would you give to other people who feel overlooked in their careers? Asked one journalist. Lisa smiled. Never stop believing in your own worth. And remember that sometimes the biggest breakthrough comes from being underestimated. When people expect nothing from you, you have the freedom to exceed every expectation. As she left the conference that evening, Lisa reflected on how much had changed. She had gone from hiding her talents to sharing them with the world. More importantly, she had learned that real success wasn't just about proving yourself to people who doubted you. It was about creating opportunities for others to prove themselves too. The engine that started it all was now being manufactured in 12 countries and had revolutionized the automotive industry. But Lisa was most proud of the scholarship program that had already helped 50 young engineers start their careers, and the innovation program that had generated hundreds of improvements from employees at every level of the company. Sometimes, the greatest victories come not from defeating your opponents but from changing the game entirely.